welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to be taking a look at Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. Now this is not a new game by any means, but it's been one that I've been interested to try for quite some time. It's a worker placement game by Plaid Hat Games. Plaid Hat Games generally does not do a lot of like Euro style games, but that essentially they're very much into the storybook games, or their card games like Summer Wars or Ashes. But I've always heard a lot of great things about this, and yes, it has somewhat of a gruesome theme. You are like building creatures out of body parts and adding skin to it, but from what I understand, it's not like people would not consider this a horror game. It may be something that you would pull out around Halloween, but this is not like Nemesis or Arkham Horror, or this is more along the lines of like Horrified, from what I understand. Again, I have always just been curious about this game, and so I thought I'd show it off on the channel. Now, originally this game was for 2 to 4 players. There was no solo mode. But at the beginning of the pandemic, Plaid Hat Games, not sure if Dan Blanchett was the one who came up with the solo mode or not, but Plaid Hat Games released an official solo variant that you can print and play, print off, and it basically utilizes all the components. So other than the rules, there's nothing else you needed, so you didn't even need to print it off. But so you can solo this game. We will be showing off the game solo on the channel, but just so you know, that's where I'm coming from. All right, so there's a letter here, little flavor text. There is our rule book, and the rule book's really not that bad. I perused it online, and so you've got a whole page of components, then you have a game setup section, and then you have really these 2 pages. It goes through the various rounds of the game, an example of the building the monster part, which I guess is one of the more complicated parts, and then literally on the top of this next page you have the end game. So to be able to explain the basics of a game to someone, it's literally covered in 2 pages, which I really appreciate. Now there's a lot more nuance to the game, which is then explained in these next couple pages, but really it's only then 2 more, not even, because half of this page is taken up by this one giant picture. So there's these nuances here you have to figure out, and then all they really do is start basically have created an appendix of the locations. Remember, this is a worker placement game. There's some game tips down here, which is nice. And then they have these entries. This is almost like a secrets book or something like that. So various cards will tell you to go to certain entries. And then there's this end of story. I think that's kind of like similar to this letter here. Just some flavor text in the end. And then a reference guide on the back. So super simple. Here you can see how old the game is. It's now 3 years old. That Fantasy Flight was still producing. They no longer produce sleeves, but they were still producing sleeves when this game was developed. All right, so we've got, okay, this is like some card stock. All right, these are your player boards. Okay, would have been nice if this area here would have been like dual layered, to the point that because you're going to be putting tokens in here and they might get bumped easily, but essentially you put your body parts that are represented by cubes, which I think is perfectly fine. I wouldn't really want a actual body part looking thing, but they decay across this track here, and so if you don't use them into the next round, they get pushed here. You can see you lose all your blood, and if they make it here, they get pushed all the way off. So keeping them in their lanes here could be difficult without there being an actual borders around these areas. Or same thing with the human spot. I think that there could really be a benefit from your arm fitting right in there and just having a little, you can almost see the cutout there. Anyways, they do have working dials, which is good. And yeah, this just kind of basically gives you everything you need. You gotta put lightning in a bottle in order to jolt the guy. You gotta get ice blocks in order to save. Your organs, your bones are just your bones, they don't decay, and these appear to be all the same. So Yeah, these look fine. Again, I think it would have been just a nice touch if they had been like dual layered cardboard. All right, so here are all the body parts. You can see for the most part, they all look the same. There's some skin tone coloration. They have, you know, covered up various anatomy, but then there's the different heads. There was only one of those tokens. That basically signifies that there's an event at the location. Here you can see on the other side. So each token is flippable. So this is what you would build first: the blood, the muscle, the interior stuff, and then you would add the skin. So these are additional objectives here. This must be if you pass 100 points on the victory point track. Lots of gold. So this is your electricity in a jar. Not 100% sure what these tokens are for, but this, I believe these are damage tokens. So if you jolt your guy too much, your body part may take damage, but once you jolt it, it becomes alive, and you have to jolt all the pieces. You could also, things could become unalive. So that's why you track them with those tokens. Let's see here. Here's all your dial stuff. Here's your ice blocks that you may or may not have, and they should be double-sided. Yep, so here's a full ice block, and then the next turn it's going to melt on you, and so you have to continuously get ice. Here's the bribe and bump track. So since it's a worker placement, generally if you go to a location, no one else can go to that location, but you can actually bump people from that location by putting them on here, but then you have to pay them. So you had to pay to bump them off. Let's see what this is. Here, event card icon. So this is the story track. This basically tracks the number of rounds that you're playing. Oops, that just popping right out of there. Okay, so here's the board. We can zoom out of this in a second, but just I'm going to tilt this around so you guys can kind of see in the light that there is some nice touches, like where the cards are supposed to go. You know, this is like glossy right here, and so the background, the buildings are glossy, so definitely some nice touches. I'm going to set this off to the side, and we will take a look at it in just a second here. All right, and so now we have a whole bunch of cards. The majority of the cards that go on the board are this size. So you're going to have various, like the docks and the cemetery. This is probably a cemetery guy. Plenty dead. Not going to have any blood with him. And here are all your marker tokens. So this is like animal parts. This is muscle, I believe. This is blood. This is bone. And these are organs, if I am correct. So again, it's not that gruesome when your body parts are signified by cubes. Then you have the various worker meeples. There are two sizes of meeples. You have your main scientists and then the assistants, and 4 colors. And then there's this captain fella, who I believe, and then the first player marker. I believe you can use, this is what you use for the solo AI too. You might be able to use one of those guys. Stuff to put your boards together. Some custom dice here. So you've got the gray and the blue. You've got lightning, you've got alive, you've got take damage, I guess. Then you've got these regular size cards. These are going to be event cards. You're going to draw one of these at the beginning of each round, and it's going to kind of might close off a location. It's going to just change things up, and you can see even like this card, events, it's around 1 through 5. So if you're around 6 or higher, you're going to look at the back side. So we'll take a look at the cards in a minute as well. And then these are all of your reference sheets. Yeah, these are all just reference sheets, one for each player. So you can see here, for example, if you want to build a leg, you need to have a, what is this, intellect or something. This is one of the values on your dial of 10, or an arm only costs 7. This is the materials you need, again, matching brown, blue, and red. And then basically the fresher the things that you use, the fresher the materials that you use. Remember, they decay over the course of time. So if you're taking materials that have decayed from like the level 4 spot, you're actually going to lose out on victory points. you can see here, if everything comes from the number 1 stage, you're getting a lot more. And if you have to use animal parts, you're actually losing some victory points. And then at the end of the game, is that part alive? You're going to get certain points. And then here, okay, so this was, my apologies, this is like putting the skin. So this is completing a monster part, and this is starting a monster part. So this is where you're going to need bone, muscle, things like that. Again, everything's listed here depending on the composition of your worst piece of material. So if you pulled just one thing from 4 and all the rest came from 1, you're still only getting 5. And if you had 1 fresh animal part, you're actually only getting 3. So everybody's got these. These are all the same. I take that back. There should be in here some player cards, because there are some asymmetrical player powers. So this is basically just materials, key, attribute, dial, icons, round order. So this is just your basic reference card, and that's it. This is ironically enough, we were mentioning Fantasy Flight. This is very Fantasy Flight-esque boxing here. No miniatures hidden away. All right, so let's take a look at the board now, and then we'll take a look at the cards. So here is the board. I feel like it's probably bigger than it really needs to be. There's a lot of just, dead space in between. And I appreciate that they put some scenery back there, but with all this dead space, it really doesn't feel like it was necessary to make this board this big. You could have maybe even gotten away with maybe like a trifold board and it'd be long and skinny or something. Anyways, yeah. Like we already pointed out, these are very shiny. There's various worker placement spots, places for cards to come out, bonus objectives, cards coming out, or 2 cards at St. Roch, 2 cards at the Academy, who's at the morgue, who's at the cemetery, things like that. I think some of these are like decks that you flip over and it tells you at certain times how many you get to look at, and then you just put them back on the bottom. So, but there you go. First player, no bumping. Dark alley. Anyways, that is going to do it for the board. Let's take a look at the cards. Okay, so here are basically your player cards. So there appears to be 6 of these. So everybody's going to get a unique player here. This is where you're going to be placing your workers. You're going to gain them as the game goes by. But here you can see begin game with your wisdom set to 2. Once per lab phase, spend 1 less material of your choice when starting or completing a monster part. So again, all of these are unique. These represent all the mad scientists who have the events of this game supposedly take part after the Mary Shelley book, and then they have a little bio on the back. So that's a nice touch. There are those. Then there are these 2 different types of cards, and I believe you kind of choose a certain number and mix these up, or maybe you just mix them up all the time. So there's event cards and then there's encounter cards, and again you can see that both of them have various rounds. Like this one is from round 7 to 12, this one's from 6 to 12, and so depending on, they're double-sided, depending on what round you're in, you're going to get different things. The first player is always the one who flips over the encounter, or flips over the card, and if it affects someone, they can choose who it affects. So you could easily, if it's like, someone loses some blood or something, you could pick somebody who's in the lead. And then there's just this cover card here that sits on top. So since they're double-sided, you're not going to be able to see what's coming next. So those are all like these standard size cards here in the game. And then you have all of these mini Euro style cards. So you've got your docks, lots of docks. Let's see here, your Academy cards, Academy, Saint, the church basically. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. St. Roch, Public Square. We'll look at all these here in a little bit, in just a second. The morgue, And the hospital. Is that it? Nope. And the cemetery. Yep, almost forgot about the cemetery. That must be the last one. Okay. So you can see here, you're basically getting various body parts from around the city at various locations. So this guy, you know, these guys have decomposed a lot more, so all their stuff is coming in at a level 3. You're not getting any blood, but that's what you get there. And you can see that all of these, they change. I believe you might have to pay for some of these in a certain way. Yeah, so yeah, some of these have a payment or a brain next to them. Some of them don't. So not 100%. Like this guy's super decomposed. Let's see if we can find somebody who, or this guy's nothing but the bones. Nothing but the bones. Okay, so 3 is the lowest. This guy's the worst. He's nothing but skin and bones. These guys are somewhere in the middle. So yeah, that's the cemetery. You know, the morgue, these guys are much fresher, I guess you could say. So they're going to be in like the 2s, maybe even 1s range. Nope, 2s and 3s. Let's see, where's Public Square? I think these are the freshest guys. These are the ones who literally were just beheaded. These are probably the more gruesome cards because they're literally all missing their heads. Leopold the Vast. Okay. But yeah, a lot of these cards you're just going to be seeing the same stuff. These, I believe, are people that you can interact with. They're going to get you stuff. So these guys, these aren't actual bodies, but you know, there's draw 2. This guy says, oh, I can get you this much stuff. Stuff like that. So these guys are found at the docks. Let's see, the Academy. These are going to give you cards that you can use to your advantage. Manipulate the die rolls, things like that. So you learn stuff. The Church. This is going to give you stuff that's going to give you aid, health, humanity, things like that. And then the Hospital. What does the Hospital give us? Okay. The Hospital gives us really fresh stuff. But I'm guessing that you probably have to kill these people, so it costs you some humanity to take them, because they're not quite dead yet. So there you go, lots of bodies floating around. But that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for our unboxing of Abomination, Heir of Frankenstein. Again, coming up on the channel is going to be a how to play video specifically directed at how to play this game solo, because that's what we do on this channel. And then we'll do a playthrough. So we'll see if this game is all it's been cracked up to be or talked about. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.